Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I thought I'd decide to make a card using the brand new February 2018 card kit from Simon Says Stamp. I'm using that pattern paper that you can see there. That's how I got the inspiration for using my ink colors. This is the stamp set from the card kit that I'm using. I'm using a piece of 110-pound Recollections cardstock that I get from Michaels. I'm trimming about half an inch off the bottom of the front of the card, and it's a little bit short there, and you'll see why I do that in a minute. But some of the inks that I'm going to be using today are Lawn Fawn Peachy Keen, Lawn Fawn Guava, Lawn Fawn Merman, Hero Arts Butter Bar, and Hero Arts Soft Olive. I don't end up using the Hero Arts Soft Vanilla. You do see it in the top left corner of my screen right there, but I don't actually end up using it. I just didn't have enough room. I thought I had enough room to stamp 6 times, but I only do 5, and you'll see that later in the video. So I'm taking that diagonal edge, and remember how I trimmed off the bottom front of my card? I'm stamping this border stamp on the inside bottom of the card, so when I close the top of the card, you'll be able to see that stamp from the front of the card as well as when you open the card. So it's a little bit different and interesting way to have stamped images on your card. I'm just lining it up on my MISTI there, and I'm using VersaFine Onyx Black ink. This is one of my favorite inks to get a nice crisp black image. I'm going to ink it up a few times just to make sure I get a nice perfectly crisp image, and I stamped it there with my MISTI. Taking my magnets off, and you can see when I close the card how you can see the image through the front as well as when you open the card. Like I said, it's another way of having stamped images on your card. I use my baby wipes that I get from Costco. This is Kirkland brand. I really like these because they're nice and gentle on my stamps, but yet they don't fall apart and have lint all over your stamps. So I'm going to grab a noose. I'm going to clean off that stamp really well. I'm going to grab another stamp from that same stamp set, that February card kit from Simon Says Stamp. I'm going to hold my paper down with my magnets, and I'm going to be grabbing this stamp. It's another border stamp. This is like a fine, thin stitching line stamp. This one's a little bit tricky to line up because it's so thin. I was struggling a little bit getting it lined up. I finally got it lined up there. I'm inking this up with the Lawn Fawn Merman ink, and I'm actually putting this on the bottom of the front of the card. So when I inked it up a few times there, and so when I close the card, you'll be able to see both the black diagonal trim as well as the stitch trim, and they're going to look like they're on top of each other, although the black trim is inside the card. So it's another neat way to have some borders on your card. I'm going to grab another stamp from that same stamp set again. This one is like a icon stamp with an envelope on it. I thought it looked really cute. And I'm going to decide where I want to put this on my MISTI. I want to be able to stamp it across the bottom of the card a few times using different ink colors. So I'm just deciding, I'm trying to line it up in the middle the best I can. And you can see here I needed to close my card in order to get the stamp, the MISTI to close so I can get that stamp on there. Lining it up the best I can in the middle of the card. I'm going to pick it up with my MISTI, and I'm going to ink this up with that same Lawn Fawn Merman ink. This is one of my favorite Lawn Fawn ink colors. It's nice and teal and bright. And the great thing about Lawn Fawn, as well as Hero Art inks, is that as it sinks into the paper, it really soaks in, and you get a nice, clean, crisp image. So I'm just, I'm not using a ruler or anything. I'm just kind of eyeballing it. I'm going to wipe it off with my baby wipe there. I'm going to be using this ink color. This is Soft Olive from Hero Arts. And I'm just eyeballing how to get them spaced properly. You could use a ruler and a pencil and measure everything, but I wanted to make a nice quick card, so I'm just using my eyeballs to line up that image there. So again, I'm going to be inking this one up with some Hero Arts Butter Bar. This is a nice deep yellow color. And you can see the ink stains my stamp a little bit, but if you just clean your stamp off really well, you shouldn't have any ink transfer. Again, I'm going to close my MISTI on that a couple times, make sure I get a clean, crisp image. Wiping it off with a baby wipe. I use a wet one and a dry one. The dry one kind of helps pick up any excess ink that might be left on the stamp. And I'm lining it up again the best I can. The great thing about the MISTI is that you can just slide your paper along that edge, and they're going to be lined up every time. This ink is Guava from Lawn Fawn. I'm going to ink this up a couple times. It's a nice deep rosy coral color. Wipe it off with my wet and my dry cloth so there's no ink transfer. And I'm going to ink this up one last time. And this one is called Peachy Keen, sorry, by Lawn Fawn. It's a nice light coral color. And like I said, I got the color inspirations from that pattern paper. I just took that piece of paper to my ink collection and tried to match them as best I can with the inks that I have in my collection. Inking it up a few times, making sure it's nice and crisp. And I'll clean that off with my baby wipes again. Make sure it's nice and clean. And I'll show you all the different colors there that I used. And when you open up the card, you can see that black trim on the bottom. So I'll put my stamp image back on my backer sheet. And now I put my MISTI away. And this time you can see how that pattern paper really brings out the colors that I chose for my inks. And I decided to trim this down to 2 inches at first, and you'll see that I trim it down even further. I wanted a space to be able to put my sentiment, and I was trying to decide how do I want to arrange this, and I decided it was just a little too thick, so I'm going to cut it down to 1 inch, and so I just cut it into half. And then I'm deciding, do I want it on the top of the card, do I want to put it on the bottom of the card, should I use both strips, space them out, how do I want to do this? And then I thought it would be best to be able to put it right above those envelope images so I have room on the top for my sentiment. I'm just using my dot runner adhesive. You can use whatever adhesive that you might have in your collection. I'm using my grid mat to line this up the best that I can to try and make it straight, and I'll push that down. Grab my scissors and I'll just cut off that excess. You can always measure it first before you put it on your card and trim it down, but this was easier for me. And I noticed I need a little bit more adhesive on the edge there, so I'll put that in there and then I'll push that down. So I'm deciding what kind of sentiment do I want to use. I decided to use the handcrafted Hello sentiment from the same stamp set. This is a great stamp set full of images and sentiments. You can get a lot of use out of this stamp set. So I'm going to put it back in my MISTI so I can use this stamped sentiment, and I decided to put it on the right hand side of my card. Make sure that it's adhered down to my MISTI with my magnets. And I'm using that same VersaFine Onyx Black ink. This is a great black ink if you're looking for something that makes nice, clean, crisp images, especially for sentiments. The only thing is it is a pigment ink, so you do need to let it dry a little bit. It doesn't take too long, but it does need a little bit of time to dry so that you don't accidentally smear it. And I'll clean off my stamp there and put it back on my backer sheet. And I really like how this turned out. And that sentiment just happened to fit there perfectly. I actually just did that by chance. I didn't mean to measure to make sure that that sentiment would fit, but it worked out. I decided to add that that black diagonal stamp once again, just along that sentiment. Looked like it was kind of floating there. I needed a little bit of help on that top white panel. It was a little bit too boring for me. So I decided to take out that same diagonal border stamp again and ink it up with my Onyx Black. And I'm just gonna, sorry I'm out of screen there. I'm just gonna ink it up a few times, and I'll push this up so you can see it. And I just wanted to help that sentiment ground it a little bit. And I'll clean off my stamp with my baby wipe. And I'll pull it up so you can see. I apologize, I'm off screen. I didn't realize I was off screen as I was filming. And I'll pull up the card so that you can see how it really helps, there we go, how it helps ground that image. And then I thought, it needs something on the other side. I probably could have got away with not doing it because it really didn't add too much to the card, but it just kind of helped ground the other side of that image. Sorry, that sentiment rather. So I'm just using the lines on my MISTI to line up that stamp as straight as I possibly can. And I'll pick that up with my MISTI Door, ink it up with that Onyx Black ink again, push it down, and like I said, I probably could have got away with not using this part, but you know, it looks alright. So I'll clean off my stamp with my baby wipe again. I love using the same baby wipe. I can usually get away with using one baby wipe per card, which is really good and economical. So as you can see, I'm checking out my card and thinking, I feel like it really needs something else. And so I decided to take that 1 inch paper that I had cut off from the 2 inch paper and add it to the inside panel of the card, and it would just get hidden when you close the front of the card. So I'm just lining it up with the front inside of the card and adding adhesive to it so that when it closes you can't see it at all. And I'll adhere that down and trim off the edge. So nice little peekaboo pattern paper strip. And I'm still thinking like it needs something, it's missing something, so I decided to grab my Nouveau Crystal Drops, and this color is the Bubblegum Blush. And I'm just adding a few drops here and there. If you watch my previous videos, you can see that sometimes I go a little too far with my crystal drops and add too many. So I really tried to just take it easy and just add a few drops and not go overboard with these drops. As you can probably see, I tried to make a heart-shaped crystal drop inside of that hello, and I did not like how it turned out at all. I even tried using my poker tool to kind of clean it up and make it look like a heart, but it just didn't dry very nice. It was kind of cracky and didn't really like how it turned out. So I ended up scraping that off, and you'll see in the end what I don't have it in the video, but in the final pictures you'll see what I end up doing. Now, one of my crystal drops smeared a little bit, so I just taking my poker tool just to clean that up a little bit and also flatten them. I live in a really colder climate, very dry climate in Alberta, Canada, and so you can see that my drops don't flatten that great here. In the spring and summer, I notice that they do flatten a lot nicer. So I'm just using my poker tool to just kind of help flatten those crystal drops a little bit. They will flatten a little bit better over time, but that just helps them flatten out a little bit in my climate that I live in. So you can see there's the card. In that hello, that O of the hello, you can see that heart. And here in the picture you can see I scraped off that heart and I replaced it with a flower decal that I had in my collection. You could use anything that you have in your collection. So that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and please hit that like button and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video. Thanks for watching.